Hello everyone, welcome back. This video is going to be the very first one of a multiple part series on all the different steps on how to make a mug. From throwing to trimming to handle attachment to glazing to everything you could think of. Now, to start, the clay that I'm using is 1 1/3 pound. I use this size because it seems to be perfect for the mugs that I make. I typically make mugs that are a little bit big just because I'd much rather have my mug be bigger than smaller. If you want it to be a little bit smaller, you can make it a pound. If you want the biggest stein you've ever had, you can make it like 1 1/2, 2 pounds. That's up to you. 1 1/3 works for me. This is a generic gray stoneware. It's a little bit gritty, has a little bit of sand in it. Not a lot, I'd estimate like 5 to 10%. And it's a nice little ball. Now, before we put it on, get going, a couple quick things to cover. Whether you're using a ceramic bat or not, one of the most important things that I will see people do is that if they were making lots of things, they'll typically have the head of their wheel wet from when they were trying to remove the last piece of clay. It's all wet, it's all slippery, and so when they try to take their clay and smack it on, it does not quite work, and it just wants to slide around. It doesn't stick. So, first thing we want to make sure we do is that we have a nice, dry, either wheel head or bat. So, luckily, I can just grab another one, put that on, good to go. You can see it's nice and dry. My clay, I'm gonna flip that over, nice and dry, it's nice and sticky. We aim for the middle, tap it on a little bit, and then really kind of push it down. A lot of people will try to throw it, and what happens when they try to throw it is that, because they think it's all cool, they're like, I got it, no I didn't, nobody saw that, let's just put it in the middle, don't worry about it. And so I prefer to just look at the middle, rest it on, tap, 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 good to go. Now you can see this is nice and dry, but now everything's all grippy, it's very sticky to my hands. My hands stick together. And so what we're gonna do is add a little bit of water. Now I want you to see visually what it looks like when things have water versus when they don't, because it comes in handy later. When it's wet, it has a little bit more of a sheen, a little bit shinier, which allows for everything to feel a lot smoother, more gentle. This should feel very relaxing on your hands and shouldn't feel like you're gripping something that's wanting to stick to you. So you can see smooth hands, smooth clay, and everything's all happy. Now a little bit reminder before, I have my wheel spin counterclockwise, and I will typically work on the more of the right side because as you can see, the clay is sliding nicely out of my hands. Whereas if I was on the left, you can see it just immediately dug into my fingertips. Did not help the clay. And so I'll typically work on the right side. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bunch this video together to talk about both centering the clay, how to make the clay look all pretty and nice in the middle, and how to cone, which is bringing the clay up into a cone and back down. Because I think there's a lot of correlation, and if you do them correctly, then the clay should stay centered as you're coning, and you shouldn't need to center it later. Now, for coning, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna have our hands in a couple different positions. One of the most important ones, I'll first use the kind of similarity between this wheel and a clock, where my clock has 12 o'clock at the top, 6 o'clock at the bottom, 3 o'clock at one side, 9 o'clock at the other. So when I work on the right hand side, I'm working at 3 o'clock. That's going to be how I distinguish that in later videos. My right hand naturally rests at 5 o'clock, left hand at 7 o'clock. Now, even though this is a little bit of clay, it'll fight you back at first, especially if it's a little bit more off and really kind of wobbly. So with my right hand at 5 o'clock, I'm bracing it on either my leg or deep into my hip, something that can support it. Because even though this is a little bit of clay, it'll fight back, it'll push in. So as you're pushing it, it may just want to push you. Versus if I really brace those arms down, then my arms don't want to move. And when my arms don't want to move, they will move the clay. Pushing in, staying strong. That's the first thing you'll learn. And one of the main things that I'll talk about is the idea that when you work with clay, you want to be strong but gentle. So every movement you make is confident, it's strong, it's dynamic, but you're being gentle with the clay. I'm not just trying to rip it off. I'm just trying to make a move, but hold it. Because if you don't, and if you're a little scared, and you're trying to push it, but you're like nervous, the clay is gonna be in control, and it's gonna kind of push you around, which is not what we want. So when I decide I'm gonna bring it together and bring it up into a cone, my hand goes in and I am stable. It's one of the hardest things to learn, but it's one of the best to practice. Now, if your clay gets really wonky, the first thing we're going to learn is how to help keep it centered and in the middle and away from this kind of wonky mess. So when I was talking about that right hand at 5 o'clock, what we're going to do is we're going to be pushing it towards 11 o'clock, right across. And so you can see I'm using this palm, pushing in, making sure I'm using this whole area. So from the very top in that knuckle to all the way at the bottom of my hand is pushing towards 11 o'clock, while my left hand is supporting that notion. So you can see pushing, 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 until the clay no longer wants to fight me back. And then I'll slowly, slowly, slowly bring it back to the middle and let go. Now you can see I didn't quite get the bottom. It's a little bit wonky, and that's typically because a lot of the times you have this little bit of clay that's really annoying that's at the bottom. And so that's one of the things that I will very much try to clean up, try to keep a nice, clean wheel head. So we'll show that a couple times. Wonky, wonky, wonky. Right hand, whole palm. And I'll actually show it without my left so that you can really see what's happening. So it's wonky, 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 adding more and more pressure, more and more pressure. You can see it's starting to relax, start to slow down. Slowly bringing it back. And there you go. Now, when you're coning, it's the same pressure, but now your left hand is also pushing in, and that's going to cause it to go up. So, wonky, wonky, wonky. Applying in pressure. Left hand is now helping apply pressure. And go slowly. And now we have a cone. Because that pressure mixed with that pressure forces it to go up. I'm not trying to pull it up into a cone. I'm trying to push in and see if I'm just pushing in from right here, it's only going to get taller and taller and taller. So let's say you have this super duper tall cone, and we're going to practice bringing it down. Once again, bringing it down, keeping that same pressure to 11 o'clock, left hand is supporting. And now, one of the big things is that you'll see a lot of people show a lot of different ways on how to bring a cone back down. Whether it's a flat hand, pushing down, I use this knuckle. I rest it over the top, that's pushing down, while the rest of my right hand and the whole left hand is supporting. And that's if you're right-handed and you want to use that pressure from your right hand. If you're left-handed, like me, you can use this knuckle, pushing it down. And so what I'll do is that I'll show what it looks like first with the right hand, second with the left. So that's pushing down, everything else is supporting, nice and slow. Going down. I'm still applying that pressure to that 11 o'clock just a little bit. Okay. Now we'll do that again. Putting my left knuckle over the top, right hand is supporting. And back to this pretty little knob. Now, what happens when you're up at this cone, you're pushing down, but you're not supporting the side? So let's try that out. Just gonna push down, not supporting the sides. What you get is this big kind of wonky. First, it does a little bit off-centered. Second, it does what's called a mushroom cap, where it wants to peel over the side. So if I was going to keep pushing down, this guy really wants to curl over. So let's show that one more time. Well, we've got our cone. And we really want to make sure that whatever hand we choose to push down with, we are supporting and keeping those sides in. I'll show you what it looks like about halfway down. If I'm supporting the sides, you can see it's nice and straight. Nothing's curling over, nothing's peeling out. I'll actually show it with the other hand going all the way down to the bottom. Nice. And that's what happens when you can keep that consistent little bit of pressure towards that 11 o'clock. Versus, let's see what it looks like without the left hand with a lot of pressure. It can still be done with a lot of pressure. Actually, I'm going to do that with my left hand. So I'm applying a lot to that 11 o'clock. And you can see what's happening where it's still wanting to come down. But it's also wanting to stay stable. So that's the first thing that I recommend practicing, is how to cone while keeping it stable. And so I'll do a whole bunch of tests, whether I've got this really wonkiness, how to add pressure towards that 11 o'clock, and how to bring it down. You can practice it with one hand, both hands, but that teaches you how to keep your hands stable and how to keep the clay nice and centered. Now in the next video, we're going to talk about how to open it up while keeping it centered and stable, and how to get ready to pull up the walls. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.